It may surprise some of you to learn that I've never bought a Formula One 1/18th scale model before, and I wanted to share with you guys my experience for a first timer. One of the reasons I haven't kind of jumped into the Formula One diecast model game is because choices in recent years have been very limited. Minichamps, who is one of three major companies who produce 1/18th scale Formula One models, the other two being True Scale models and Spark. Minichamps is the only one of the three that produces diecast versions. The other versions are made of resin, which is more expensive, much more fragile, and quite frankly, I don't like kind of hassling around, even though I own a few resin models with resin if I can possibly avoid it. The other problem is that Minichamps, being the only diecast producer, has been very limited in their choices with their Formula One models. In fact, the last few seasons, you've only been able to choose from Mercedes and Red Bull. Thankfully, for this year's diecast, based on last year's Formula One season, they have decided to add the feeder teams for both Mercedes and Red Bull in the form of Force India. You will now know that team as Racing Point, and Scuderia Toro Rosso. Now, why did I choose the Toro Rosso? Because I really love how this car looks. I think it looks just simply awesome. It's also kind of cool to get a representation of the first Red Bull-Honda relationship, and I've just always kind of had a thing for Toro Rosso, maybe because in their inaugural season in 2006, they hired American Scott Speed, and maybe that was just something that kind of stuck with me through my life. But I definitely love how this car looks. In fact, it's not the only diecast representation of a Toro Rosso I've bought before. I have this 1/55 scale, and I know that's a weird scale, of their 2017 car that was an exclusive diecast to 7-Eleven stores in Taiwan. Yes, I know, that is an incredibly obscure place to get a diecast F1 car, but for some reason they make it incredibly hard to get diecast F1 cars. Regardless, I'm familiar with Minichamps through their former IndyCar productions, and in fact, I have several Minichamps IndyCars from the 90s. And the reason I bring that up is because I want to illustrate what a big boy this diecast is, because as you can see, this is a 1995 Robbie Gordon IndyCar, and I know it's not totally in the frame, but this is kind of the important bit. You can see how much larger the F1 cars of the modern era are because they've had to extend the classic Minichamps box about 1.5 to 2 inches. I mean, this is a very large model, but it's very beautiful. I'm very excited to take a look at this. Another point I do want to bring up real quick is that I chose the Brendon Hartley version. Now, many of the reviews that I've seen and many of the pictures that I've seen online have almost exclusively been of the Pierre Gasly version of this car. And I can only assume, for one reason, this car does look a little bit better when it has the yellow camera pod. But also, of course, Pierre Gasly is continuing in F1. Brendon Hartley is not. He was fired for Alexander Albon this year. But, I have a more personal connection to Hartley. He's a Le Mans winner. I value that win over probably pretty much anything Hartley did in Formula One. And I've also seen him race in person, and I can't say that about Pierre Gasly. And I have to say, after looking at Gasly's ghastly performances, I guess I could say, in the first couple of races for Red Bull, I do kind of wonder if a couple years down the line, history will remember Brendon Hartley a little more fondly, even if his Formula One career only ended with, I think, 3 point-scoring finishes, and the best one was at the United States Grand Prix, so I guess there's that too. Let's stop the talking. Let's get this model out of its box. So I wish I were lying to you on this point, but no joke, it took me probably 17 minutes to unscrew this car from the base, and either I am terrible with hand tools or Minichamp screws these cars in way, way too tight, because I had to grip the car and like really drive the screwdriver into the screw to get the car out. And there's, even though this is mostly die-cast, there are some plastic parts here on the side, And when you're trying to hold the car in place so that you can get the screws undone, you get very worried when you start hearing the plastic getting stressed from, having to hold on to the diecast so it doesn't fall down. That was all around an unpleasant experience. But what isn't an unpleasant experience is actually looking at this model in the flesh out of the package. I mean, this thing is stunning. I mean, it's one of the better models that I own, just period, especially diecast wise. Clearly, Minichamps, I mean, they do a great job on these F1 diecast, and this is a stunning example. Just take a look at this thing. I mean, it is, it looks almost exactly like it does on TV. I have to say, even though I know some people don't like the halo, and some people may prefer this year's wings that are simplified and a little bit larger, I think this is really, really good looking for a Formula One car. Now, what I don't know if it will come across on camera, is the exact color of this car. It's actually like a dark blue. It's almost like a liquid color, kind of I guess pearlescent would be I think the correct proper terminology if my Forza Motorsport painting is anything to go off of. It's just a very interesting color, and in fact on TV it looks very like a bright blue, like a light blue, and that's not really what it is. I'm guessing this is the correct color. I'm guessing Minichamps wouldn't get it this wrong if it indeed were a different color. But yeah, and you can just see the Coke bottle shape here of the modern F1 cars. That's and look how much space between the floor and the rear of the car. Again, Formula One teams have to design and redesign their cars each year, so you get a different car every year. So that means when Minichamps decides to make a car each year for a team, they have to go back to the drawing board and redesign it totally. So the differences between this car and the Pierre Gasly car are very, very simple. You've got the 10 on the front of the car and the rear part. Then you also have Gasly on the side, and then the driver figure is different, of course. Driver figures, we're going to be taking a closer look at Brendon Hartley within the cockpit here in just a second. I kind of want to, careful on the rear wing. I want to make sure the car doesn't roll away, but also stays in the camera shot at the same time. It wants to roll backwards for some reason. But yeah, there is one part that I feel like I did kind of mess with a little bit down here, part of the underfloor there. I'm guessing it just kind of got stressed a little bit as I was holding the diecast to get it out of the package. So be careful of that. I mean, that would probably be car retiring damage in Formula One. You can see all of the detail here in the barge board area. This is kind of one of the, even today is still one of the most open areas for development in Formula One. This car in particular, the Toro Rosso, always has kind of struck me as being very Mercedes-like, even though for the 2018 season they kind of copied the Ferrari nose and wing. The wing itself, I mean, it is just a cascade. I think they even refer to them in the industry, so to speak, as cascade wings, and you'll just see that. Let's go in for a closer look on some of the details of this car. You can see the wing, all the wing struts and all that stuff right there. Just, whew, that is a very complex piece, and I think it's plastic. I think the front wing is plastic, so this will be a part that may or may not be susceptible to breakage. You've got the Italian flag there. Of course, Scuderia Toro Rosso, as the name would suggest, is an Italian team, even though their parent team, Red Bull, is technically Austrian, as Red Bull energy drink is from Austria, but most of the cars are built in Britain. That's just how Formula One goes. Hopefully this is just, you're able to take a look at all the detail, especially look just underneath the suspension pieces here, where you've got this skirt underneath, very McLaren-like. I know McLaren at one point, in fact, this front wing assembly, the nose cone of the car, is very similar to the 2017 McLaren. Lots of the copying that goes on in Formula One, or all of the copying that goes into Formula One. Here's the halo. There's a wing on top of the halo, as you can see. and we'll try to get a look at Brendon Hartley in the cockpit there. I keep touching those barge board pieces on the side there. Hopefully you're getting a good look inside the cockpit. They have the steering wheel in there. Hard to tell what Grand Prix this is from. I don't think there's anything specific in the cockpit that would indicate which race this is from. And these are the parts right here that I may have messed with the wrong way. As you can see, I think I broke that off just a little bit. It's moving around. I don't think it's supposed to move around. The Honda Hybrid on the side there, and right underneath you've got a Speed Week logo. I think that's one of the sponsors for the Austrian Grand Prix, so still some Austrian influence on this car. You can see the wheels. You get a different wheel nut on both sides. You got the green one on the left or the right side of the car, and on the left side you get a red one. On the rear wheels there are no colored wheel nuts, and I believe that is correct. The rear wing, you can see all the detail in here, all the vents and some of the louvers here on the bottom, and also just the kind of cool cola and tonic organics by Red Bull. And then you've got the T-wing. The T-wings are still there. They're just lower down. I think they are still on the cars for 2018, and it's nice to see that detail included. I mean, just look, and you can see the exhaust as well. I mean, again, I'm a person who generally collects the IndyCar diecast that are produced by Greenlight, and Greenlight does an all-right job. They definitely keep the costs down. This car costs, I think, somewhere in the range of 3 times as much as a Greenlight IndyCar, but for what you're getting here, I mean, you are getting absolute accuracy in terms of the car. You've even got the cutouts on the floor, as you can see, of the car. You can see through those. And here's Brendon Hartley, the top of his helmet again. And you can see the belt detail as well in there. The 360 camera, which is used in some of the social media stuff. Just take a look at that paint. Beautiful. Onboard camera slots, of course. All of them are represented on the car, as is required by the rules. And just look at that. The slicks as well. Interesting to note, I think this is correct. It's not printed here on the rear wheels, but it is printed on both sides on the front wheels, or maybe they just did a cost-cutting measure on the rear. But yeah, this thing is spectacular. Really is. Really nice. This is really cool. I'm glad I purchased this, even though it definitely got a little bit chaotic as I was trying to unbox it. I hope you've enjoyed this look at my first Formula One diecast. Let me know down in the comments if it convinced you to buy one, or maybe if it didn't. I'm not like paid or anything by Minichamps, though I wish I was. Minichamps, hit me up if you thought my review was good. But yeah, I would be interested to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think this is worth the money they're asking for it? It is a fairly expensive car, I will say that, but it's, again, less expensive than the resin ones, and that's why I kind of went after it and bought it. And it's also nice to be able to buy a car from a team that you don't get as many diecasts from. That was kind of also a thing to keep my collection unique, and that's always fun. So thank you guys so much for watching this. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport and Formula One content, and we'll see you in the next video.